We have ample of people with toxic mindset and toxic ideologies playing around us 24/7. And a very recent example is the visit of our Honorable President Draupadi Murmu to Puri Jagannath Temple, and how her visit was totally twisted and tweaked by certain section of people to portray it in a negative light in the name of caste. So this concept called caste continues to be a secret sauce for all those malicious people who want to stir up nasty things for their benefit. So this topic continues to be relevant, and in this context, let's try and understand, is Sri Ramayanam casteist in nature or not? And I'll explain why I chose this subject in a few minutes. But before that, quickly my point of view and my position. First and foremost, no blind defense of Sri Ramayanam. I have no interest in defending Ramayanam. And by the end of this video, if you don't think or feel that Sri Ramayanam is something useful for people like you and me, you can just throw it out of your window. And second thing is, Uttarakanda or Uttara Ramayanam is an integral part of Sri Ramayanam. People have diverse opinions about Uttara Ramayanam, but 99.9% of them would have never read Uttara Ramayanam or don't even know the spelling of Uttara Ramayanam. People just jump to conclusions. I spent 1 year working on the subject, made an extensive documentary, and then I'm saying Uttara Ramayanam is an integral part of Sri Ramayanam. Maybe there are interpolations or extrapolations as part of Uttara Ramayanam, but it is very much an integral part of Sri Ramayanam. And needless to say that Valmiki Ramayanam is the single source of truth when we want to understand Sri Ramayanam from a historic standpoint and conceptual standpoint. Lastly, for the people who are having a toxic mindset, you call yourself a Brahmin, you call yourself a Shudra, you call yourself a Dalit, you belong to Abrahamic religions who have been using Sri Ramayanam in a negative light to further your conversion agenda. I'm speaking to all those kinds of people. Simple English, no confusion. Lion, cheetah, tiger, elephant. Very dangerous, but not in Jurassic Park. Because in that park, there is a dinosaur that will shoo away these lions, tigers, cheetahs and elephants. And people who call themselves as a Brahmin, Shudra, Dalit or a Christian or a Muslim having mindset which is toxic in nature, then Sri Ramayanam is that Jurassic Park. And the truth of Sri Ramayanam is the dinosaur that will smash away all the Brahmins, Sudras, Dalits, Christians, Muslims, everybody who has a toxic mindset. Not everyone, just the ones with toxic mindset. Pardon the pun about the dinosaur, but I promise by end of this video, I am very sure many people will feel very uncomfortable. So let's get started. It's quite simple and straightforward. I'm going to take four different cases from Sri Ramayanam, and let's try and understand word by word in Sanskritam what is written, and based on that you can form your opinions about Sri Ramayanam, whether it is casteist in nature or not. Case number 1, Shambhuka. A very quick backstory. The Shambhuka's episode comes in the Uttara Ramayanam. That's when Sri Rama starts ruling the Ayodhya and his entire kingdom. And in the Sri Rama's kingdom, a young Brahmin boy meets an untimely and unfortunate death. And the father of that Brahmin boy comes to the court of Sri Rama seeking for justice for the untimely death of his son. And at that moment, Narada Maharshi, who was also present along with Sri Rama, he tries to understand the context and says that somewhere in your kingdom, a Shudra is performing a penance or a tapasya which is forbidden. Shudras are not allowed to do that kind of tapasya. And that is the reason why this Brahmin boy died. Now Sri Rama, it is up to you to do the justice. And that's when Sri Rama sets out and scours the entire Ayodhya and his kingdom to find where is this Shudra performing a forbidden tapasya, and he happens to find Shambhuka and kills Shambhuka because Shudras are not allowed to perform a certain kind of tapasya. And as soon as the Shambhuka was killed, the life of the Brahmin boy was restored by the Devas and he wakes up healthy again. Now here a Shudra called Shambhuka was killed to restore life to a Brahmin boy, and that happens to be a perfect recipe to portray Sri Ramayanam in an absolutely negative light. And this episode is the best trump card for the conversion cartels, saying that, see, your Sri Ramayanam discriminated you, come to our religion, we'll take you to heaven. And that seems to be working because people never care to read what's actually written in Sri Ramayanam. So now let's read that word by word, a very important slokam, a pivotal one in the entire episode of Shambhuka Vada. These are the words of Narada Maharshi to Sri Rama. Hina varno nrupasrestha taptaye nahi vaitapah bhavishyat shudrayonya nam tu tapascharya kalau yuge. And this is what Narada Maharshi says to Sri Rama. Rama, the greatest of all the kings, a Shudra should not perform a tapas or a penance. But in future, there comes a time called Kali Yuga where Shudras can also perform tapas. Honestly, it blew my mind when I read this slokam for the first time, because in the first line, it clearly says that a Shudra should not perform a tapas, and in the second line, it very much for the times that we are living in now, it is perfectly fine for Shudras also to perform tapas. Now, where the hell is discrimination? Maybe it was a rule written for those times. It is nowhere relevant for us today. The slokam itself says that, and the first line of this slokam is taken, twisted and tweaked to further social evils like untouchability, casteism, religious conversion cartels have been using this left, right, center. I don't want to go anything beyond this one slokam, because then it becomes that I'm trying to extrapolate and put Sri Ramayanam in a good light. No. And there comes another question. Oh, why should he have been killed? Why Sri Rama should be killing a person just for performing tapas? Look, if you don't know what is the social code of those times, don't try to retrofit current day's context onto what has happened some thousands of years ago. I'm focused on just one thing. The reason for which Shambhuka was killed being a Shudra, that reason does not apply for the times that we are living in, and that is being said by Sri Ramayanam itself. I rest my case. Case 2, Ravana. This is what Valmiki Maharshi writes about Ravana. Rakshasendram Mahabhagam Paulascha Kulanandanam. Ravana, who was born in the lineage of Paulascha Brahma. And what you're seeing on the screen is the family lineage of Ravana, right from Brahmadeva. And for all those half-educated intellectuals who have been using Shambhuka to portray it as if Sri Ramayanam is anti-Shudra, a simple logical question to all those intellectuals is, Ravana himself is a Brahmana and he is killed, and we celebrate the death of a Brahmana over thousands of years and every year. Now, does it mean that Sri Ramayanam is anti-Brahman? Let's have a bit of common sense, guys. So this is case number 2. Let's move on to case number 3. Case 3, Guha. We all know that Guha, who was a fisherman who helped Rama, Sita and Lakshmana cross the Ganga Nadi. And Guha was a bhakta of Sri Rama. This is what we know. But unfortunately, this is wrong. Tatra Raja Guho Nama Ramasya Atma Samah Sakha Nishada Jatyo Balavan Stapatih Cha Iti Vrukshataha Tam Artha Samparishvajya Guho Raghavam Abravit. And the translation is, a king named Guha was Rama's friend, dear to him as his own life. He was of Nishada Jati, a strong man and well known as a ruler of Nishadas. Closely embracing Rama, Guha, who was felt disturbed, spoke to Rama as follows. That's basically the translation of these lines. While introducing Guha in Sri Ramayanam, these are the words of Valmiki Maharshi. Carefully read these words, you'll understand for yourself. Tatra Raja Guho Nama Ramasya Atma Samah Sakha. Sakha means friend. He is a very dear friend of Sri Rama, not a bhakta. He is of Nishada Jati, a tribal man, is a dear friend of Sri Rama. You already understand what I want to say. I'm not extrapolating, I'm not deriving something on my own. This is exactly what's written word by word. In the last line, if you see, Samparishvajya, which means to tightly hug. When Sri Rama and Guha meets for the first time, without uttering a single word, Guha runs to Sri Rama and hugs him tightly and cries because of all the difficulties that Sri Rama is about to face in his upcoming 14 years of exile. To all those half-educated intellectuals who linger on to the Shambhuka Vada, portraying it as if it's a caste discrimination, what would you say for the relationship between Guha and Rama? Go and read Sri Ramayanam and then try to make your opinions. Don't just beat around the bush like headless chickens, believing in the narratives that some communists or atheists have written about Sri Ramayanam. You're talking about a book? First go and read it. Again I repeat, case number 3, read about the relationship between Guha and Sri Rama, how it was detailed out. And Guha clearly is of a Nishada Jati, and how dear he was to Sri Rama, and their relationship, what they spoke to each other. It sounds exactly like the episode of Krishna and Sudhama. So that's case number 3. Case number 4, Matanga Maharshi. Certain section of people, after listening to this case, will not even dare to touch Sri Ramayanam. I challenge. Matanga Maharshi plays an extremely pivotal role in Sri Ramayanam, but unless you read Sri Ramayanam into the depths of it, will not be able to understand the role of Matanga Maharshi. He is the one who set the complete context and climate for Rama to meet Hanuman. Such a pivotal role Matanga Maharshi played. Matanga Maharshi is the guru of Sabari, and he asks Sabari to wait for the arrival of Sri Rama and eventually guide Sri Rama and Lakshmana to the Rishyamukha Parvat on which Sugriva and Hanuman are hiding from Vali. And in the further backstory, it is Matanga Maharshi who curses Vali that he cannot enter the premises of Rishyamukha Parvat on which the ashram of Matanga Maharshi was situated. By doing these two things, Matanga Maharshi made Sri Rama meet Hanuman, and the rest is history. Now that we have a brief idea about who is Matanga Maharshi, we need to understand who exactly is Matanga Maharshi. And to understand who exactly is Matanga Maharshi, we have to fall back onto Mahabharatam, which is also an itihas, an undisputable account of what has happened. So let's flip to Mahabharata for a couple of minutes. We should go to Mahabharatam Anushasana Parvam, 3rd chapter, a part of the conversation between Bhishmacharya on his Ampasaya to Yudhishthira. This entire chapter details about the life history of Matanga Maharshi. Sthane Matango Brahmanyam Nalabhad Bharatashabha Chandala Yonyau Jato Hi Kadham Brahmanyam Atpruyat. Yudhishthira is asking Bhishmacharya, O Bhishma Pitamaha, please narrate to me how Matanga Maharshi, who was born as a Chandala, evolved as a Brahmana in his life. A Chandala means an outcast. That's how in English it is translated. But the actual meaning of Chandala is the one who breeds dogs and takes care of the dead bodies, the cremation and other aspects related to it. People in that occupation are called as Chandalas, and it is considered as the lowest of all the Varnas. It's basically the outcast. So Matanga Maharshi was born as a Chandala, and eventually in his life, with all his hard work and tapas, he becomes a Brahmana. And it is the same Matanga Maharshi who is also present in Sri Ramayanam, guiding how Rama could meet Hanuman. The life history of Matanga Maharshi is very extensive and deep. If you want, read this chapter of Mahabharata, but I'll try to summarize it in simple words. Matanga Maharshi comes through a lot of hardships in his life, born as a Chandala, and he evolves as a Brahmana. Now, what is a Brahmana, or who is a Brahmana? The one who realizes the supreme reality, the Parabrahma, is called as a Brahmana, and it is not a birthright of any person. It is an evolutionary process where everybody can attain that state and become a Brahmana. That is exactly what Matanga Maharshi's life history says. That is what effectively all the scripture says. It is not a virtue by birth. It is the hard work of that individual through which one can attain the state of Brahmana. If you read the complete chapter, you will understand what Bhishma Pitamaha said about Brahmanatva. He clearly says that it is something that one has to earn throughout his or her life. And for all those half-educated intellectuals who talk about shambhuka as a caste discrimination, what's your take on Matanga Maharshi? I know that you have dropped dead silence because what you have is not an opinion. You're a victim of a propaganda. Anyways, let me stick on to the topic of Matanga Maharshi. So the life history of Matanga Maharshi is very deep and extensive. I will not be able to cover in just a couple of minutes. So what I'll also rely on is a very important, undisputable account. Let's see what it is. One of the divine manifestations of Shakti is Matangi. Matangi Ma is revered as a form of Tantrika Saraswati. And the Matangi Gayatri Mahamantram goes like this. Om Matangye cha vidmahi uchchishta chandalyau cha dhimahi tanno devi prachodayat. Matangima is also revered as a Uchchishta Chandalini, and the word Chandalini is a feminine version and Chandala is a masculine version. Both essentially mean the same, the one who breeds dogs and takes care of the dead bodies, its cremation and other activities. Let's be very honest here and don't blame Mughals and British for every damn thing. We have this social practice, rather an evil practice, of not allowing people of a certain community into the temples. And unfortunately, the Chandalas were also part of such community who were deprived of their right to pray, enter a temple because they were outcast. And we all know that the Brahmin community historically has been held accountable for these kind of practices where people were not allowed into the temples. The irony here is, take a Shivalayam for instance. Shiva himself is the biggest of all Chandalas. So basically, worshipping a Chandala is what's happening in a Shivalayam. And other Chandalas were not allowed to enter temple to pray to the bigger Chandala. Now this is a very nuanced subject. Before you make the entire Brahmin community as a villain, we need to understand certain nuanced subjects in this context. Not allowing everybody to enter a Garbhagriha is a Sadachara. Only the Archaka can go into the Garbhagriha of a temple. But not allowing a specific community even to step into the temple to worship is a Durachara. So very nuanced and thin line that one should understand. I know it sounds a bit complex, so as I promised, I'll make things simple. So if you want to know whether a person is Brahmana or not, it is very simple. Take this one slokam and ask them, do you believe and agree to this slokam, yes or no? If the person heartfully says yes, then the person is a Brahmana. And if a person cannot agree to this one, then the person is not a Brahmana. They are just boasting themselves to be a Brahmana. It's as simple as that. And these are the words of Shankaracharya. Jati niti kula gotra duragam nama rupa guna dosha varjitam desha kala vishayati vartiyat brahma tattvamasi bhavayatmani. That is the bottom line. Now let us roll up to the objective of this documentary, the truth about caste discrimination in Ramayana. Now we have seen 4 cases: Shambhuka, Ravana, Guha and Matanga Maharshi. Shambhuka, a Shudra, was killed for his adharmic intentions. What was his intention? His objective was to go to heaven to experience the sensual pleasures with the same body that he is holding now. And that is the reason he has been performing a tapas, which doesn't fit into the dharmic code of those times, and hence he was punished. And in the same slokam it clearly says that this rule does not apply to Kali Yuga. So there should not be any problem with Shambhuka. Number 2, Ravana. A Brahmana was killed for his atrocities and adharma. No one cries over Ramayanam saying that a Brahmana was killed. People celebrate the death of a Brahmana. And case number 3, Guha, a hunter of a Nishada Jati. He is a very dear friend of Sri Rama. Don't call Guha only as a Bhakta of Sri Rama. He is a very dear friend of Sri Rama. And case number 4, the Big Bang, Matanga Maharshi, who was born as a Chandala, evolved as a Brahmana. Now there is a red line between case 1, case 2 and case 3, case 4. Case 1 and 2 is all about what the person actually is. His deeds and his actions decided the fate of that person, irrespective of the caste. And case 3 and 4 is the same thing again. Guha is a very honest person and a dear friend of Sri Rama, and his caste doesn't matter. Matanga Maharshi, who was born into the lowest of all castes, rose to the highest point of a Brahmana. It's not a birthright. Brahmana or being a Brahmana is not a birthright of anybody. Now this is the truth of Ramayana. Can you handle the truth? That's my straight question. Now if we look at Sri Ramayanam to understand if there is a caste-based discrimination in Sri Ramayanam, yes or no, then these 4 cases will leave us to deeply think on what actually we have been taught about Sri Ramayanam. If you are a Brahmin and you look down upon other caste people saying that they are untouchables, then Sri Ramayanam asks you a question, my dear friend, what do you think about Matanga Maharshi and Guha? And coming to Sudras and Dalits, you might have certain experiences and viewpoints about caste-based oppression. I do empathize with that. But look at Sri Ramayanam. It is not a copyrighted property of anybody. It belongs to everybody. And this great grand epic clearly demonstrates that there is no such thing as caste-based oppression, and it treats equally everyone based on that person's deeds and actions. And this is the reason why we bow down to Sri Ramayanam. You don't believe the half-truths that people with certain agenda are peddling into your mind, saying that Shudra or Shambhuka was killed and there is a caste-based discrimination. Where all this coming in from? This all originates from a negative propaganda where you are made to be the victim. You don't like a specific community, I have no problem with that. But if you misunderstand Sri Ramayanam, I really have to say this out loud. I cannot let it happen. I want people to understand Sri Ramayanam for what it really is. And that's my sole intention. Now, coming to the people who are using Sri Ramayanam in negative light to propagate religious conversions, let's have a civilized conversation. Clearly, shambhuka vada has nothing to do with a caste-based discrimination. Yet, it is being maliciously used to further the conversion agenda. Can you afford to be truthful? Sri Ramayanam has been sacrosanct for Bharat over thousands of years, and how can you dare to twist and tweak it to portray it in a negative light? And also, I have a news for you. There are people like me out there who will not let it happen, and we always uphold what is the truth. Let me finally and categorically say something. Throughout this documentary, I have been addressing to the people who are having very skewed perspective or a toxic mindset, and it is not in general for everyone, and hope that's understood well. And my only intention is to bring forward the truth about Sri Ramayanam. Now, if you can handle the truth or cannot handle the truth, it's up to you. And as always, thanks for watching.